well, so I couldn't even vote for the candidate of my own party. That happened once before. In the previous election, I voted for Gary Johnson and Judge Gray, good combination. But the election before that, Bob Barr was the presidential candidate of the Libertarian. Not bad, but a better candidate at that point was Chuck Baldwin of the Constitution Party. So that year I voted for Chuck Baldwin instead of my own party's guy. And I voted for Gary Johnson, but this last time I didn't. And unfortunately, the Constitution Party was only on the ballot in 23 states, not including Massachusetts. So I had to write in Darrell Castle. And Darrell Castle was the most libertarian of any of the candidates in any of the minor parties, far ahead of the Libertarian candidate. And here's an interesting thing. The second most Libertarian of the candidates in all the minor parties was Jim Hedges of the Prohibition Party, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but actually he's a pretty solid guy. Their party does have the basic plank about prohibiting alcohol, which is not quite libertarian, but
not quite
libertarian. Maybe common sense, but not quite libertarian. And the Prohibition Party was the second most libertarian candidate of all the candidates. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel about Trump, but I do think we can get Trump to do some things right, and I do believe that this is an opportunity if we can get enough of a snowball going so that there's enough influence on that commission and they say, yeah, we should look at this racism as bad, especially by the government. Most of them probably don't care about it.
They probably don't see that as racism. It doesn't fit their definition of racism.
And they don't understand that any congressman or senator who voted for what's called affirmative action is, by definition, a racist. Edward Kennedy was a racist. John Forbes, Kerry Hines, Horseface Lurch was a racist. Any other senator, either party, who voted for affirmative action is a racist, and I always call them that. And that goes for Jim McGovern and anybody else in the House. And unfortunately, the Republicans have not really picked up on the issue of racism the way they should have.
What do you think being a libertarian? Because a lot of people would say, well, the problem is, the Democrats and or the Republicans have it all sewed up. And a third party hasn't a shot in hell in this country.
Well,
and that's true because of we're stuck in the stranglehold of the Democrats and Republicans, and you can only vote for one person. So, like in this last election, so many people from either party supported their party's candidate, not because they liked them, but because they hated the other guy. And there is another option that's starting to grow, and I'm starting to get involved in it, ranked choice voting.
I was just going to bring that up. That hopefully will be a ballot question this year.
Yeah, August 9th at the ballot box here in Worcester. They have one I believe it's Wednesday in Shrewsbury. So I'm going to learn some more about it because I think that might be the way we really need to go to break out of this stranglehold of the two major parties.
I agree.
That are so bought and sold.
Most of what you said...
Now, what's it called again? It's called ranked choice?
Ranked choice, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Most of what you said was geared towards the presidential election. But in other elections, we do have a better chance with minor parties.
Local.
Especially local, but even at a regional level, even for Congress, there's a better chance if you have the right candidate and you get two really bad ones in the major parties. And the problem that people have is they say, well, I really don't like Trump, but if I vote for somebody else, that's like a vote for Clinton. If we had the ranked choice, you can vote for the best candidate, and if that doesn't work out, you then have your compromise option on the next round. So I think there's a lot of merit to that, and I most likely will support that petition drive, and I'll get a bunch of people going on that to pick up 10 or 15,000 of the signatures needed. So
this is going to be a statewide ballot question?
Yeah.
Who's spearheading that?
The committee that Sue was talking about, right?
Oh, okay. So that's a statewide thing.
Now, with regard to state ballot questions, our group kind of broadening it out, has the ability to get just about anything on a statewide ballot that we want. For example, Jeff Deal, our good friend, he worked with us on the tank the gas tax thing, and we built quite an army of volunteers. We're going to be doing that on the stop state funding of abortion, keeping it on that part of the issue, not looking at the overall issue, but the government shouldn't be funding it, whether you agree with it or not. So that ballot drive only got about 25,000 signatures out of the 69 or 70,000 last time. But this time, with some new people in and some of our coalition of friends joining in, that should be on the ballot. So we have actually the ability to get things on the state ballot, which is why you're going to see more and more complaint about, they shouldn't be having these ballot questions, that's the legislature's job. Well, they don't do their job. They didn't do it on the gas tax. They didn't want to vote when it's time to increase the gas tax, and most of them were Democrats, and I thought the idea was let the people decide. They didn't want the ballot question on. Well, that is the people. So this time there should be some good ballot questions on our army, so to speak, that includes a lot of people, some of the good Republicans, some of the independents and the libertarians can do that. And a good example was in Jeff Deal's campaign. He's playing up the idea of the Olympics. Now, you may be like me. You might like the Olympics, and it'd be nice to have it local, but when you get past that first layer and you look at the problems, you may be against having the Olympics even in Boston. And when it was pretty clearly shown that the cost of the Olympics and the override cost would be about $10 billion for the taxpayers in the state, we were able to quickly form a coalition. The Libertarian Party, which was already on the ball on that, and the United Independent Party with Evan Falchuk, and the good Republicans like Jeff Deal formed a coalition. And very quickly, the establishment and the bad Republicans realized we could get that on the ballot to stop the Olympic waste of money. And so what happens? The two major guys in the state, one a Republican, one a Democrat, who had previously been saying, it's going to be great for Boston and Massachusetts to have the Olympics. Suddenly, they came out and said, it's going to cost too much. We're going to try to save the taxpayers this money. So Marty Walsh and Charlie Baker suddenly were on our side and tried to take credit for that. And the only reason they did that is because they knew we could get it on the ballot, and they knew from focus groups and surveying that it would pass. And if they were on the side promoting it, and of course DeVal Patrick and his $7,500 a day as a consultant, that they'd get eaten alive by the public.
It's what I call the wet finger in the air politician.
Yes, exactly.
They wet their finger, hold it up. Oh, I'm in favor. Oh, wait, the wind changed direction. Now I'm not in favor.
But those two hypocrites are still trying to take credit for saving us the money.
Right.
It wasn't them. It
was all
Jeff
you guys.
Deal and you and me and our friends, some of whom should be here. We're the ones who did it. It wasn't Baker and Walsh.
They just jumped on board later on. After the ship had already left the dock.
and if you don't have that kind of an organization like we have of volunteers from a number of different coalition groups, it costs a lot of money to get a ballot question on the ballot. And then they spend millions, usually of taxpayers' funds and peripheral things, to fight against. When we originally fought to repeal the sales tax, not the rollback to 3% that Charlie Baker wouldn't sign the petition on when I asked him at Worcester City Hall one day, but when we fought to have the sales tax repealed totally, the temporary limited 3% sales tax that had grown to 6%. When it was at 5, we tried to get it repealed, and they spent over, no, that was before. This was on the ballot, and we got 40-something% of the vote, but they spent over $3 million of taxpayers' funds to fight against that.
You're thinking of the income tax repeal, not the sales tax.
No, the sales tax too.
We never tried to repeal the sales tax.
No, it was before you.
Oh, what year are you talking about?
I don't remember because I've done so many since 1966 that they all blend together.
Because I asked Carla Howell in 2010 why she didn't go for a full repeal, and she said because the SJC ruled that the sales tax is used to Something, it's, you can't repeal it completely because of some reason.
The state legislature, those dirty sneaks, somewhere before that had passed a bill that essentially said if you're going to repeal something, the burden is on you to show how it wouldn't have a negative effect or where the replacement money came from. And so because of that law that went into effect, it would become much harder to repeal it totally. That's why that happened. So, you know, that was half a piece as opposed to a whole piece.
Sneaky.
So even cutting it in half was too bold for them.
Yeah, I know. It's too bold for Charlie Baker, who claims to be a Republican but on the side of the taxpayers, who isn't standing up for the so-called wimpy little sales tax holiday that became popular a few years ago.
Oh, he didn't? Oh, so we're not getting it this year?
If he was standing up for it, it would go through. But he's been very quiet on it. Charlie Baker is not your friend, even if you're a Republican. And you know, I guess I'm talking about that now, but those of us here who have friends within the Republican Party who are running for state committee, some of them were strong supporters of Charlie Baker, and then he stabbed them in the back and supported somebody else to make sure that there wouldn't be Liberty Republicans on the state committee. So if you're out there, Charlie, resign. Let's get a good governor, okay? How about Mark Fisher? Mark, are you around?
Yeah, be nice to have him back again.
Yes. But
It is what it is.
yes.
Hopefully somebody else will step up, but if we don't get the kind of reforms we need, it's got to be somebody who's self-funded.
Well, one of the things I had said in a blog piece and on my radio show is that shortly after the whole Mark Fisher debacle, him getting basically hamstrung at the convention and everything else, we're going to be hard pressed to find somebody like him again, if not himself, to enter into the race, knowing what we know now, that you're going to get screwed over. You're gonna have your delegates. You're gonna have all your stuff, and then Mass GOP comes and they shred the files, they shred the paperwork, they lock people in a room and say, no, we're having the vote. You guys stay in here. All the shenanigans that they pull. Knowing that, we're going to be very hard pressed
Who'd be crazy enough
to do it again.
That's one of the two big obstacles that were deliberately put in place. First of all, a lot of people don't run for office, whether it's governor or something else, simply because of the financial disclosure laws in Massachusetts and what you have to file for disclosures. Even if you're not rich, it's a big burden that takes away from your campaign time, and you shouldn't have to do it anyway. So we're struggling, whether it's for the Libertarian Party or to get good Republicans running, or maybe find a good Democrat somewhere if there's anybody left after Larry McDonald was assassinated. It's hard to find somebody just on that basis alone. I know a lot of people who would run and say, well, I'll run, but I don't want to spend any money. Oh, I got to do all this ethics filing, and I'm subject to fines and penalty of perjury.
Sure, right.
No, thank you.
And Dan Fishman was on the show, and he had said that. He said before, you just had to get your 15%. That's all you had to get. Your certain signatures, boom, you're on the ballot. Now the whole rules, everything's all changed.
And that's
it's
the
like
other
you just
issue.
said about the filing of all this other stuff. He said that stuff never existed. Just get your 15%, get your whatever, 50,000 signatures or whatever you needed. Boom, you're on, good to go. Now it's just all changed now.
So if we want better candidates, the best thing we can do is get that Office of Political and Campaign Financing abolished and get the financial disclosure abolished. There's fraud laws in Massachusetts that are plenty strong to prosecute somebody who's stealing money via campaigns. For example, do you remember Lyndon LaRouche?
Yes.
Lyndon LaRouche was a whacked-out socialist communist economics professor, and he wrote and spoke the most boring stuff you ever read. Even if you think other people involved in writing about economics were boring, Lyndon LaRouche was even more boring. But he got to be a candidate for president as a kind of a renegade Democrat. What happened to him? He went to prison because his campaign supporters gave contributions, some of them by credit card. And what he did was he reran the credit cards and had extra contributions being given by them without them knowing it. In other words, stole from them. It didn't take an ethics law or a financial disclosure law to fix that. There were fraud laws that very clearly did that, and when some people complain, hey, I didn't put $200 on my Visa card for his campaign in May, I only did that in July or previous year or something. So we don't need those kind of laws that
all prior restraint laws should be abolished.
right,
and
that
that's,
the
and that's
people are
big.
telling us we need to protect us from the evil people. What it does is it protects them from being prone to being put out by real people instead of who aren't part of the establishment.
Well, I remember when we ran our income tax repeal in 2002, we had supporters who wanted to give us money, but were afraid that their identities being known would hurt them in some other way.
Exactly.
Because they do business with so and so, or if that person found out I'm supporting your campaign, they might not do business with me anymore. So.
Yeah, so that's one of the two things. The other two thing is relevant to the Republican primary for governor coming up. I'm encouraging Jeff Deal and Alan Waters and anybody else in the Republican Party, when they go to the convention, to say, wait a minute, convention endorsement, that's fine, that's part of what a party's for, I'll take it if you give it to me, but everybody who qualified under the law to be on the ballot should be on the law, because the 15% rule that the Republican Party adopted to be Democrat light was illegal and unconstitutional to begin with, and if the Republicans are really an opposition party, they shouldn't follow along with what the Democrats did. This plays into, of course, having a really, truly open primary and having good, challenging debate and knowledge that will attract people. If the Republicans don't do that, they're even more stupid than they are, as they're now known, the party of stupid.
Yes.
So.
I think the next time I have to fill out a form, when you donate to a campaign, they ask you for your occupation and your employer. I think I might put down GFY Inc.
Yeah. GFY Inc. I like that.
GFY Inc.
Exactly.
You're giving me some really good ideas here.
Well, anyway, that's the two far out little projects that I'm starting up. There's far more immediate ones and practical ones, including the petition drives.
Well, you're going to have a
lot
lot of opportunities. This being an election year at the local level, there's going to be a lot of campaigning going on, a lot of people asking for votes.
Yep, and I'm going to try to put the candidates on the spot
Yeah.
for all of these issues and many more. So,
Thank you, Al.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yes.
appreciate the interest, and I'll be doing this again, maybe some other outside things or speaking at other meetings, and
Balloons at the corner.